Hello everyone and welcome back. For today's video I have something special. I get a lot of questions about some of the rifles that I paint when I'm at events and on videos. So I'm just going to go over kind of what I do to spray paint or camouflage my rifles, and then what materials I get, where I get them from, and where to look. I don't do anything too crazy, so we'll get into it. There are some more, like, if you want to protect it a little more, you can do better base coat layers and primers, and then also do like protective coats. But I like it when it gets battle worn. It kind of breaks it up a little bit better, and then the more you use it. But if you want to protect a little more, I can do another video on it, but this one will be basically just an overview of how to use your spray paint, and then not really how to use spray paint, but how you can spray paint your rifle. I see that a lot of people are just kind of scared to spray paint their rifles, and you really don't have to tape it off as much. I mean, there's more you can do than what I do here, but this is bare bones, like the basics, just to get something on it, to either make it look unique, camouflage it, and just honestly all the above. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So everything in here I got to spray paint this rifle straight from Walmart. I go straight to the spray paint section and find the Krylon camouflage, like hunting camo. It does the best for being a matte finish and also not reflecting through night vision and so on and so forth. When you go there, you want to look. They don't have a wide selection of colors, but just the basic ones for camouflage. You want to, before you go, kind of have an idea of what camo scheme or color scheme you want to go with, and then just pick the colors that apply. Here I got the kind of like sand or like coyote brown, and then the dark like brown with the OD green. They have a couple other camouflage colors, and you can throw some black in there, but it's just something to break up the rifle pattern. As well as on here I show the matte clear coat you can do on the outside, and then if you want a better undercoat before you do any of the steps I go through, you can apply any primers based off of the material. So if you have like a polymer receiver or a metal receiver, you'll want to get the devices or the spray paints that will cover those better. And then for the pattern I used, I just went straight to the arts and crafts section and found some mesh netting. I ended up using some different stuff I had on hand, but you can get the same results with the stuff that I bought at Walmart. If you want some other patterns, there you can go find things out in the wilderness, use leaves, or you can even cut stencils out yourself or buy stencils online. It just depends on what pattern you're going with. The most common is the snakeskin effect, which I use this mesh burlap that I picked up. You'll also want to make sure you pick up some masking tape in the paint aisle. It'll help you cover up anything you don't want to paint. And then with those spray paint cans I got and the materials, you can usually do about 4 or 5 rifles, and as you can see, it came out to only like $24. So it's a big bang for your buck if you're trying to camouflage more than just yours or you and your buddy's equipment. Now, before you start anything, you'll want to prep your rifle or handgun or piece of equipment you're painting. The first thing I do is usually wipe it down. If it's a gas rifle or one of my real rifles, I'll degrease it. With AEGs and most of the externals on things, I don't degrease them. That is a step you can do if you want the paint to adhere better. I personally don't have any issues, or I've never had problems in the past doing it this way. And then you don't really have to tape off that much. Only things you don't want to cover. So if you want to keep trademarks covered, if you don't want to get the trigger, it's fine. A lot of people are worried about getting paint inside cracks and crevices of the rifle. And the thing you have to remember is that, especially this Rust-Oleum paint, is essentially just, it's a powder base. So it's like getting sand in there or dust on those exposed areas. And that's not going to stop your rifle from working. If it's a gas rifle and you get something in one of the cracks or crevices, you might just have to cycle it a couple of times to wear it down. But the only things I really covered here were the clear window on the bullet like indicator on the magazines, the end of the muzzle, because I didn't want anything on any paint on the threads or down in the barrel. And then I also covered up the bottom of the grip into the motor just because it was exposed and I didn't want to get any paint down in there when I decide to work on this weapon later. I don't cover the buffer tube. I extend it all the way out. It'll get rubbed off, so if you want to protect it more, or you're doing something more fine detailed, you might want to consider taking the weapon apart and just taping the whole buffer tube off and painting the stock separately. And if you have optics, same process, just mask the lenses off and any indicator numbers. This is the same process that we'd use to spray paint any of our service rifles. The only difference is like we're required to cover up any of the serial numbers with paint or with masking tape, so we don't paint over them. But as you can see here, I just kind of do the bare bones and it gets the job done. Any attachments you don't plan on painting, or like for example, I kept the foregrip on. If you plan on removing it or taking it back on, or you might want to have that rail segment, you can paint those, but you can also take them off to paint them. Those are permanent affixtures to this rifle, so I did keep them on there, but I did take the optic and the light off just because they're not permanent fixtures, and I would like paint under those, as well as I don't want to paint match those optics because they might end up on something else. So once you've prepped the rifle, the next step you want to do is, one, shake your can well, but into lay down some type of cover. I use cardboard here. You can use a trash bag and tape it down. Either be in a well ventilated area. Here I'm inside, so I used a respirator mask. Basic spray painting principles. One thing to keep in mind though is if you have high winds and you're outside and you're in like a dusty or grassy area, that will blow on and catch on the paint, and it will disrupt your pattern and kind of ruin the paint a little bit. Not a huge issue, just something to keep in mind. Make sure you shake your can well, like I said, and then you're just going to do the base coat. Either this is your primer or your base coat for what I'm doing here, straight into the camouflage. I start with the lightest color, or the one that contrasts the base color of the rifle the best, so that I can see that it's fully covered. And I'm just going to go light coats, let the coat dry. The lighter the coat, the faster it dries. It took about 5-6 minutes for these light coats to dry. I'll go over, they'll be a little bit exposed, and I'll go over with like another second or third layer just to get the full rifle covered in paint for the base layer. Once you get your base layer on both sides and you ensure that you got around the edge on the top and bottom of the rifle into the cracks and crevices, once those fully dry, you want to start your camouflage process. For this, I'm going to go with just stripes down the side in the dark brown, and then once that dries, we'll get into how I implement the net. Once you kind of get your thick outer layer or your base coat, and then those, if you decide to do thick layers like I do, everything else is just playing around and seeing what works and messing with it. These are just the two, you kind of have to let them dry. I do both sides for the coats, and then when I do the painting camouflage, I do one side at a time, just ensuring that I get some type of camouflage on the top and the bottom of the rifle. For the pattern I decided to use, once both sides were fully dry, I laid my mesh netting over the top. If you have smaller segments of mesh, you can move them over and spray paint sections at a time. Luckily, I had one big enough to cover the whole rifle. I'm just simply, at first, I'm going to go and I'm going to take my tan and spray paint over where my brown lines are, and then take my brown and go over where the tan lines are. Give those a second to cure. You don't have to let them go as long because you just quick, fast movement, a little bit closer than what you were doing for your base coat. And then I'm going to take my green and go over all of it, not to cover the whole rifle, but just to go over, and it'll give it a nice camouflage pattern. You can play around with it and just add and remove paint. Not really remove, add and cover up as you go, squirts here and there. With this, it's a lighter coat, so it's not going to pile on as much, and you're able to play around with it. It's not a set thing. You get it to go how you like it and what looks best for you. If you're going for looks, that's a big thing, honestly, just making it look nice. And then two, making sure it kind of camouflages or fits that spectrum of concealment you're going for. At this point, this is where you could apply that matte clear coat that I was talking about. You can do a full, I would do a couple layers of it. It's hard to see because it's clear, but you can tell when it's wet and stuff. You can add that on top of this even if you don't do the base one, and it kind of meshes everything together. I just like the raw of just the paint, but that gives you a good idea of how you can do it differently for your own setup. Now, once your coat's dry enough to mess with it, I immediately take off the tape, as if you take it off later, it can pull off layers. I've never had that happen. Just immediately, I usually take off my masking tape. You don't want to put on your optics and attachments back onto it. You got to let it sit and cure for at least an hour, and then it takes up to 24 hours for the paint to fully set. So don't do any massive moving or playing around with it for the first 24 hours. But usually an hour or two in, you can reattach your optics and accessories like I have here. And then this is what the rifle looks put back together 24 hours later once the paint's cured. As you can see, it's nice and matte. There's nothing overly shining other than the stuff I didn't paint. And even with the accessories not being painted, it gives a nice look to it. It helps break it up in the field, and then also you get a unique rifle that's customized to yourself. If y'all like the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, as your feedback helps us improve the video. We are not going to be able to upload gameplay footage for a while, so for the next few months, it's going to be just videos like this to kind of give you an idea of like what I do to personalize my stuff, and then some advice and kit setups, so on and so forth, things like that. If y'all are new to the channel and this video did help you out, please do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon if you want to see some more of our videos coming out. And then I will have some in-screen clips up here so you guys can clip over to other videos we have in playlists. So without further ado, I hope y'all have a great day.